Hi friends! If you're new here, my name's Anobong and welcome to my channel. Today we're doing something a little different. I decided to bring you along for my bullet journal setup for April. I know it's a little late, but as you might be able to tell from my voice, I haven't been feeling very well, so editing this video has been a bit of a struggle, but here we are, so let's just go with it. I've been slowly getting back into bullet journaling after trying it a few times and never sticking with it, because I'm in a season of life where things are a bit hectic and all over the place, and I'm struggling to find time for me. I have an almost 2-year-old, another one on the way, my husband's in grad school, and I run a small business, so yeah, my schedule is a little full these days. But I think that when we don't make time for ourselves to be still and disconnect from technology and slow down, we can often feel more hectic than we need to. So bullet journaling for me is a chance to move my life away from all digital to a little bit of analog and find time to focus and slow it all down. As I've said, I've tried bullet journaling before and not stuck with it, and I think that's because I was letting other people define what I needed in a bullet journal. This time, I've been starting these past few months to stick to the 5 main spreads that you need to start bullet journaling, which is a key, an index page, a future log, some kind of monthly spread, and some kind of weekly or daily spread, whichever works best for you. I've even kept my setup very minimalist and basic, just to not make it a burden to set up my bullet journal each time. But this month I've decided to tentatively move into a bolder and slightly more elaborate setup and add a few additional spreads along the way that are hopefully necessary extras, and if they're not, then goodbye. The main thing for me is to keep editing my setup month to month. If I find that a spread becomes redundant or burdensome, then I'm getting rid of it. The main thing about bullet journals is making them work for you. And now, let's talk about the setup for this month. April is my birthday month. So I wanted to choose a theme that reflects some of my favourite things. It's been almost exactly 4 years since I moved to America from England, and my favourite city in the whole world is London, so I decided to do a London theme for this month's setup. Now, when I think of London, I immediately think of fashion. Although there are fashion weeks held in many cities all over the world, the big 4 fashion weeks are held in New York, Paris, London and Milan. London Fashion Week is actually the youngest of the 4, and the first Fashion Week in London took place in 1984 and was held in the Commonwealth Institute's car park in Kensington. In 1985, Princess Diana held a reception for the presenting fashion designers at Lancaster House during Fashion Week, and she was also known for wearing British designers both at home and abroad. One of my goals for this bullet journal is to use it as a way of getting in more art practice, and so I do want to present at least one piece or a couple of pieces at the beginning of each monthly spread. For April, I chose this girl as my representative of London street fashion. Every now and then, I've been known to make a little bit of a statement with my outfits. I definitely used to do this a lot more before kids and the pandemic, and so yeah, I do want to re-find my inner fashionista. But London for me is the one city I've lived in where I could wear anything at all and know that A, there would be 5 people wearing something more outrageous than me, and B, nobody would blink an eye. I've heard that New York is the same, and I have to say, there's something very freeing and liberating in that. I chose to use a limited colour palette for this spread of just mainly black, red, white, blue with some splash of golden yellows here and there. So my fashionista is all in black. This is very unlike myself. I tend to be all about the bold colours and patterns, which you might be able to see from the little flashes of my sleeve that appear on screen now and then. But maybe I'll save that for another spread. I like how her outfit makes a subtle statement. It's a great day to night transition outfit, and I think it's the accessories that really make the outfit. I couldn't tell from the reference, I did draw this from a reference, and I couldn't tell from the reference if the puffs just below her ear are her hair or her earrings. I think they're earrings, which is kind of cool. So I've been playing around with watercolours recently, and knowing that the pages in my bullet journal are far too thin to handle watercolour, I drew this on a separate watercolour paper which I will later stick into my journal. And just to make extra sure we know she's in London, I added the sign for the Underground and a traditional red London double-decker bus in the background.
To believe beauty queens and rocket rollers, crystal glasses, Coca-Cola. Nice to meet you, nice to know you. Better have listened to all that they told you.
The red I used from my watercolour palette was looking a little pink. It's the red I used for her bag and for the Underground sign. It's looking a little pink, so I decided to use a red from my watercolour tubes for the bus, and I didn't realise that the reds were going to be so drastically different. So now I'm a little annoyed that I have two very different reds on the page. Lasai. I'll bear that in mind for next time I whack out my watercolours. And then another problem with watercolours is that they bleed. I didn't notice this bleed at the time that I was painting it, otherwise I could have possibly saved it with some, blotted it with some kitchen tissue. I didn't notice it, so unfortunately it was left to bleed out over the page, and I had to come back later and try and fix it with minimal success, I'm afraid. And then again, I had issues with my black ink smudging, which it didn't do at all for the rest of the spread, so that was annoying, but we just go with it. So then I came back with my coloured pencils, my crayons, and decided to add a bit more shading, a bit more depth, some more details. I tried to fix that bleed in the bus. I gave up, I just let it be. And yeah, as a practice page, it's, you know, it's not, I have to remind myself that it's not a finished masterpiece. It's just a study, essentially. And as a study, I quite like it. It'll be a nice little page to look in as I plot my April. I've seen people adding quotes, often motivational quotes, to their monthly spreads, and I really like that idea, but to make it more personal for me, I've decided to add Bible verses to my monthly spreads. One of my goals of slowing down is about spending more time in prayer, Bible study, and meditation, and I want to also get better at memorizing scripture so that I have scripture to pull to hand in situations that I need it, and I have scripture to meditate on. The thing about Bible verses is that they should never be taken out of context. Terrible things can happen when they are. And the Bible verse I chose for this month is Romans 8:34, which is, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." And in the chapter, Paul is writing about how we have been saved by God's grace and are therefore no longer slaves to sin and problems in our lives that separate us from the love of God. AKA, we are more than conquerors. As I've said, it's a busy season for me right now, and it's a trying season, and it's always a good time to be reminded of the grace of God. I also chose to pair this quote with the famous dome from St. Paul's Cathedral. St. Paul's Cathedral is a spectacular building, and if you're ever in London, you should definitely go. You can attend a service at the cathedral for free because it is a fully functioning place of worship, but if you want the full tourist experience and to see all the tombs and the galleries and the hidden passageways and the domes, then you do have to pay. But it's worth it. There is a guided tour included in the entry ticket, and it is very worth it. The tour guides love what they do, and they have such a wealth of knowledge. At least when I was there, the tour guides tend to be pensioners who I think they get paid, but you can tell that they just do it out of a love for what they do and knowing history and being able to pass on the history of a city and a building that they love to tourists and locals, and so it's a really priceless experience. On the tour I took, I learned about how St. Paul's Cathedral was kept from burning down during both World Wars thanks to brave volunteers who they called the St. Paul's Watch. These volunteers would man different parts of the cathedral, including the dome, the outside of the dome, and the inside, and they would douse out bombs that landed on the cathedral, which is absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of not testing out my pens before putting them to use, and this particular pen that I'm using to outline my Bible quote does bleed on this paper. It's unfortunate, and I won't be using them again in this journal. You'll also see later on that I added a little double-decker bus at the bottom of my quotes page, but when I didn't realise that while I was drawing it that the whole bottom of my page is out of frame, so you'll just see that pop up at the end as I do my final look at this page.
Told you to all that they told you, all that they told you, all that they told you.
So there are many ways to do a monthly spread, but the two favourites are vertical or horizontal. I probably see people using the horizontal layout a lot more, which looks more like a calendar spread, but the vertical layout has been working for me thus far. I might change it in future months. We never know what might happen. This is all still an experiment. To keep to the simple mindset and theme, I decided to just decorate this page with a little doodle of a red telephone box in the bottom of the page. The iconic red telephone box was designed by architect Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, who is also famous for the Liverpool Cathedral, and he was charged with rebuilding the Houses of Parliament after they were damaged in the Second World War. His K2 cast iron telephone box design won a post office sponsored competition, but because the K2 design was too expensive, it was really expensive to manufacture. They only made about 1,500 of them and only positioned them around London. While the post office was still in charge of telephone boxes, they commissioned a new design from Sir Giles and were able to produce 20,000 of his K6 design and position them around the UK. But as telephone boxes became dated and people stopped using them as much, BT, a private company, bought, distribution rights, manufacturing rights. They bought the rights for telephone boxes and replaced many of these iconic and somewhat pleasant to look at red phone boxes with these ugly monstrosities that have no design merit whatsoever. However, 2,000 of the red telephone boxes have been declared listed buildings and you can still spot them around the UK. I think the majority of them are still in London, and London does still have a few of the K2 designs as well. The Habit Tracker spread is a new one for me this month. I tried to avoid putting too many unnecessary spreads in that I wouldn't use, but I have a few habits that I want to introduce and reintroduce into my routine, so I'm going to see if having a physical tracker will be useful or not for me. If it isn't, then we're scrapping it next month. For my habit tracker, I decided to decorate it with doodles of the thing I miss the most from England, and that is a traditional cream tea with clotted cream and perfectly baked scones. And yes, you may call them scones if you wish. There is really no right or wrong way to pronounce the word, it just depends on where you're from. So you can either call them scones, rhyming with gone, or you can call them scones, rhyming with tones. The reason I personally prefer scones is so that you can tell the joke, what's the fastest cake? Scone. I know, I'm terrible. The cream teas that I found over here, because, fancy hotels in America do serve a cream tea, but the ones I found over here have generally been overpriced, charging upwards of $70 per person. And they've been underwhelming. At the last cream tea, the scones I had, I could have made better scones, so that was really sad. Meanwhile, in England, the best cream teas I've had been at nondescript little tea shops in a small English village and have probably cost about £20 to £30 per person. So some fun facts about cream teas. The cream tea was actually invented in the 10th century by a group of monks in Devon. And this makes sense because Devonshire clotted cream and Cornish clotted cream is the best clotted cream, and monks and nuns have generally come up with some of the best food and drinks, including many alcohols and cheeses, in my opinion. Also, don't confuse low tea with high tea. Low tea is the posh one with the finger sandwiches, the scones and the little cakes, and you tend to have it in between meals as like an elaborate snack. Meanwhile, high tea is essentially dinner and isn't posh at all. High tea, if you've ever read an Enid Blyton book, the country kids tend to have lots of high tea, and they have like cold meat cuts and sandwiches and cakes and stuff, but yeah, it's a full meal. Also, if you want to drink tea like a real Brit, so I know that tea isn't native to Britain, but since it was imported to Britain, I don't know when, it's become like a national drink. And so if you want to drink tea like a real Brit, first of all, bin the Lipton. It's the worst tea in the world. And the lemon slice. I don't know what the point of the lemon slice is. And then the best way is actually to brew a couple of bags in a teapot. But in lieu of a teapot, you can very simply just add the tea bag and hot water to your cup, to your teacup or mug. You can have it in a mug. I'm not the tea police over here, just a little bit. Let that tea steep for about 3 to 4 minutes. Remove the tea bag and then add sugar and milk to your taste. I will warn you that you will be judged if you add more than 2 sugars, that's 2 teaspoons, or 2 lumps of sugar if you're really posh. And if after you add the milk your tea is pale brown and not a rich golden brown or darker, you will also be judged. So now you know. Also, if you worried about whether you should put the jam on before the cream or the cream on before the jam on your scone, again, it's a matter of preference. I think in Devon they do it one way and in Cornwall they do it the other way. So do it whichever way you like. And hope you're not judged.
You on a pedestal, I'm Simon, I'm on my knees. Why are you so quiet, darling? Don't you know what this all means? Beauty queens and rock and roll.
Another new spread that I've added this month is the sales tracker. So I'm trying to be more purposeful about tracking my monthly sales, tracking customer favourites and promoting my shop, which is poundedyamproductions.com. And so this will force me to slow down and do all these things, I hope. So this page features a little doodle of Bombay Sapphire gin and a gin cocktail, because what's more British or London than a gin and tonic, especially the self-proclaimed London dry gin. Again, I kept the colours light, just bringing out the blue of the bottle with a few golden highlights. Finally, we come to my brain dump page. I don't know why I said finally, because it's not the final spread, but it is kind of the final spread in a way, and you'll see why. Foreshadowing. This is probably the most useful spread because I find that too much is happening in my brain at any one time, and so it's good to have a space to dump some of my thoughts and ideas, especially social media planning for the week or the month. So I chose to do another simple doodle at the bottom of this page, but I chose to do somewhat of a more elaborate simple doodle, if that makes sense. And so I pulled out some key buildings to make up a fake London skyline. You can't actually see all these buildings in the London skyline. Some are too small, but these are some of the iconic buildings of London, and London has so much iconic architecture that this is just a fraction of that. So the buildings featured on this skyline, which we'll call it, from left to right, are the Tower of London, where the crown jewels are kept, the London Eye, Westminster Abbey, where the likes of Charles Darwin, Charles Dickens and Eve Byrne are buried, the Shard, the British Museum with its stolen Benin bronzes from Nigeria, Big Ben, which is the name of the bell, not the tower, in which Big Ben the bell is housed, the Gherkin, which is British for pickle, Tower Bridge, which is the bridge that goes up and down, and the Walkie Talkie building, which famously melted a car in 2013. I purposefully kept my weeklies really simple. There are no doodles. I'm just elaborating on the colour palette of red, blue and white, and leaving space to fill in my tasks and events for the week. Maybe as I do more of this and get more used to bullet journaling, I might make them a bit more fancy and elaborate, but for now I just wanted to keep them simple. Unfortunately, I had another incident with a bleeding pen. I used the wrong end of my Ohuhu water-based markers. I should have used the thinner, lighter end, but it was another lesson that was learnt, and as I keep saying, this is all a work in progress, so mistakes will be made and they will continue to be made. So if you're also new to bullet journaling, I hope that keeps you motivated to keep going.
Crown, that's a jam.
And there it is, my April setup. I hope it does facilitate a more mindful and purposeful month and a more mindful and purposeful quarter. I hope it does help me to get stuff done and to feel more centered and relaxed. And if it doesn't, then I'll go back to the drawing board and try and fix it. Don't mind me here, just struggling with my sticky tape. It was a new roll of sticky tape. It was a new brand I'd never used before, and I'm not sure it's the best. We'll keep trying her, but yeah, I struggled a bit with her. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I post new videos. Hopefully I'll feel better the next time I record a new video. Have a good day, good evening, and good night. Goodbye.
I know we've had a few too many. I'm not sure what to believe. Beauty queens and rocket rollers, crystal glasses, Coca-Cola. Nice to meet you, nice to know you. Better have listened to all that they told.